He is the chosen one. You must see it.
I gave Qui-Gon my word.
Is it the chosen one?
He is.
And it is the Jedi who will stand in the way of peace.
It's not whether or not we fight.
It's how we choose to fight that matters.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
The Force will be with you, always.
And I will not be the last Jedi.
Listening to The World Between Worlds, a Star Wars podcast where we have been marathoning all of Star Wars and lead up to The Rise of Skywalker. Today we're talking about 3 episodes in Star Wars Rebels that run the gamut in tone and subject matter. We get Sabine and Mandalorians. We get goofy antics. We get goofy antics with different characters. My name is Yates.
My name is Jordan.
My name is Keats.
And we are talking about Imperial Supercommandos, Iron Squadron, and the Wynkahthu Job, all from Season 3 of Star Wars Rebels. Jessica was here just 5 minutes ago, but she left because we started at midnight. She was the wise one, and thankfully we lassoed Jordan in.
She tagged me in. I was supposed to, go on my date and go home and do my homework, but that didn't happen. So I guess I'm here recording this podcast for all you out there. Nah, it's chill, man.
Imperial Supercommandos. Sabine is in the midst of space Mandalore chess with Fen Rao, who we haven't seen since Season 2. And they're called back to their base on Concord Dawn, and Fen Rao then finds out his boys have been massacred. And they have been massacred by Imperial Supercommandos. These are Mandalorians that are contracted directly under the Empire. Some power-hungry bloke named
Gar Saxophone.
Okay. I was sent here by the Protector, Fen Rao.
You know where he is, then?
I don't, but I sure wish I did.
Is that so? I planned to strike this base and destroy these defiant protectors for some time. Missing Fen Rao was disappointing, but his absence did make the destruction of his men easier. I have been waiting for Rao to return. I only allowed rebel ships to move through Concord Dawn to lure him back, but now I have you. And I think you know exactly where Rao is.
Gar Saxon is introduced, and he is the new Mandalorian baddie. He's actually the old Mandalorian baddie that we didn't get to see. Gar Saxon was a character that was slated for Clone Wars and actually did appear in the Sons of Dathomir comic that picks up on the Maul Mandalore story. And he was basically a Mandalorian fascist that linked up with Maul the second Maul came into power. We see him here as sort of like a careerist that has it out for Fen Rao. With very little information about them, I bought into their conflict. It's not my favorite of the show or anything, but I'm interested to see it play out.
Ralph McQuarrie design, badass. Ralph McQuarrie's initial design for Boba Fett was the Imperial Commandos that we got in this episode.
But yeah, they reused that here. Very cool.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Rebels has a really good track record of reusing these old, unused Ralph McQuarrie designs. And I think he definitely, that design does not look like Boba Fett. It still registers as something different.
No.
Keats, so you made it clear that you were a big fan of Fen Rao when we talked about the previous episode with him in it. Here, Fen Rao is front and center. Tell us what you like about him, other than that his voice actor is the star of the film Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldiers. It'll blow your house down.
You got me there. No, I just like the inclusion of a new bounty hunter character to throw in as a monkey wrench every once in a while for the dynamic of characters. Sabine is an interesting character who happens to be a Mandalorian, but there's nothing about her that's significantly drawn back to her Mandalorian roots. It's just that she's part of the Phoenix Squadron. So the fact that we're getting the Mandalorian story through Fen Rao as a conduit, I just think is pretty cool because I think he's a great actor. I think his design's really cool. I think all of his acting so far has been pretty top notch.
Yeah, we talked in the other one about how his story was kind of left incomplete and how he's just sort of taken into the rebellion against his wishes was kind of like a weird note to end on. And
a different note also.
A different note, yeah. And I felt like they did a really good job in just like sort of resetting the stage. Basically, he's been in rebellion prison like this whole time.
Blade to cube phase 2. I win. I'll bet your game has slipped since you left Mandalore. Why do you keep coming back here? You and your rebels have imprisoned me. My protectors have orders to give you safe passage through our space. What more do you want?
Reset the board, Chop. I want the same thing we've always wanted. For you and your protectors to join us. To fight the Empire.
I made a deal with the Empire to survive. I made a deal with your rebellion to survive. But joining you? My only true loyalty is to Mandalore.
I think for me, the emotional core of the episode was like Sabine and Fen Rao trying to find some sort of mutual ground. And I thought for the most part it was handled pretty well. I think Sabine, this is another week where Sabine, I think the writing for Sabine for the most part has improved a lot in addition to the Antilles extraction last week.
I don't really understand the thing he said at the end where he was like, oh, you would die for your friends or whatever.
You haven't forgotten our ways. That has earned my respect.
He wanted to like abandon Ezra and just like leave him for dead, and I feel like he would do the same for like one of his men, like if his men like sacrificed themselves. So like I don't get that. I feel like that's contradicting. So that was kind of like was a sour note for me.
Well, I feel like he's more of... You get the impression with how worked up he is overall as men dying that, like,
Sure.
I feel
he
like...
was standing pretty intensely.
Yeah, he was standing pretty intensely. But he also, like... I don't know. Like, I feel like he doesn't care about Ezra because the rebels have imprisoned him against his will for this time.
It's not so much like Ezra, but more so, like, the words he was saying, like, where he was just, like, he's sacrificing himself so we could escape. We need to take advantage of that and just leave him alone. Like, I feel like he would say that in any situation that he would be in.
I didn't necessarily, like, I see where you're coming from, but I didn't necessarily get that impression. I kind of just got it as, like, the reading of, like, they're severely overwhelmed in this case. That wouldn't necessarily be his immediate course of action.
The scene that you described, I didn't have a problem with, but I think I did have a problem with overall, like, Fen Rao's turn, like... For me, it wasn't that sequence. It was the sequence before where he was like, Gar Saxon was going to kill me anyway, so it's not your fault. But before he was saying, like, it was your fault that you imprisoned me, and they still imprisoned him, you know? So it was just kind of one of those things that was kind of, like, sloppily explained. I felt like the sequences where, like, Sabine is just, like, trying to, like, crack him, those actually kind of worked for me, but just, like... how he decides to commit to the rebellion was the thing that didn't work for me.
Yeah, I felt in my head, like, when he was joining the rebellion, like, trying to justify it. I think if the dialogue was different, it would have felt more natural. It was just like, oh, yeah, I'm going to join the rebellion. I'm a good guy now. Like, if he was more like, oh, like, I'll give it a try. Like, I'm willing to make this work. Like, more like... holding on to like his past life but like willing to give like the rebellion a chance, that would have made sense. But like the dialogue was he was just like 100% down to be in the rebellion, and I didn't buy that.
Was it to the point where it made a significant like impact on your
feelings overall to the episode? Not really.
I felt like the writing of the characters and the emotional weight of the episode wasn't necessarily what carried it through. For me, it was more so like the intense and original action sequences and just like the whole new introduction, or not even an introduction necessarily, but the whole new like reveal about what's going on with the Imperial Supercommandos. I just think that like from an outsider's perspective, like the idea of the Mandalorians, it's just like your first immediate thought is not, oh, they're just like some division class for the Empire. It's like, oh, they're have their own way that they think. They're not followers. They lead.
Kind of like what we were talking about with Thrawn in the previous one, just the idea of people working in the Empire that have their own complete set of goals that is completely separate from the Empire.
Yeah. They're almost like bought out, essentially. They're just like, we won't attack you or try to invade you as long as you work for us on paper in the broad spectrum of things, I would still like to see more Imperial Mandalorian stories. Because this is, like, for me, the most interesting that the Mandalorians get.
Keats, piggybacking off of what you said, I do agree the action is like the standout element here.
It was a lot of action.
There was a lot of action. There was a lot of action in most of these that we've been watching recently, but there was a lot of action in this, and it was all done very well. And the characters were mainly like pushing the action forward, and that was like what they were all about.
Yeah, I can't tell you how happy I am that our action sequences aren't just our characters getting tucked in a corner and then saying, throw some grenades and we'll run. Throw some grenades and we'll run. Like, that was just like every
technically
episode.
they did throw some grenades and fly. They didn't run, they flew.
Again, not to like be too off topic, but during this episode, I was watching Ezra like swing back and forth from Sabine when she's fighting the jetpack, and I was just like thinking to myself like how like much the character Ezra has like grown like since the very beginning.
Like at one point, like in the, not to get ahead, but like in the next episode, Iron Squadron, they didn't show Kanan at all, and then like they cut to him like in the gun turret, and I was like, wait, he's on the ship? Like I didn't even know.
Yeah. I definitely feel like they're focusing on like different characters now. And Sabine has kind of been important in a number of the episodes from the previous week. And then also has like more importance in the episodes this week, at least the first two. So it's cool to see them focusing on that, and the older characters maybe taking a step back a bit. In Iron Squadron, the Ghost crew is assisting with the evacuation of the planet Wynkahthu. That is apparently Commander Sato's homeworld, but a rowdy group of teenagers, teenagers, tweens, they are causing all sorts of trouble for the Empire, but also giving our rebels a bit of a headache themselves.
We are not going anywhere. You can't stay here and fight the Empire alone. What do you think we've been doing?
If we hadn't jumped in and helped you back there...
Helped us? We had everything under control. Didn't you see how we chased off that Star Destroyer?
Yeah, that was not a Star Destroyer. It was only a transport.
You are all very brave. But once the Empire arrives in full force, that won't matter.
This is our world. And we aren't just gonna leave so some Imperial goons can take it.
We're not gonna run.
Not now, not ever.
So, Iron Squadron, let's not beat around the bush. This episode has a bit of a bad reputation. But I think all of us, and I remember really just kind of being like, when I watched it on the first viewing. Yeah, it's a bit better this time. I think we all felt it was a bit better. There were parts, though, in my opinion, that I thought were laugh out loud bad. But let's
we were laughing, you know.
I guess that's true.
Big boy.
It did bring joy. Keats. So when the episode ended, you specifically told me that wasn't that bad, and that there were parts that you liked specifically, this being the kids. Could you explain?
No, it wasn't.
Just the concept of the kids is what you said.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
The concept of the kids is very good.
No, it wasn't.
The concept of the kids. You said was the core of the episode, and it still worked.
Well, I mean, I do like these kids a lot. Just like, I like... I like how terrible they are. They're really fun.
Yeah.
Like, I love like how there's like the wrap up at the end, and they're just like trying to have a heart to heart, and then Johnson or whatever his name is just like, yeah, Iron Squadron, bro. It's just like, this kid fucking rules, dude.
This kid fucking rules.
From a more serious perspective, like, I like the idea that this episode presented was just that, you know, rebellions don't have to be militarized things. They can just be children out in wild space just trying to cause harm. That's what the idea of the episode was initially, was to try and show that. Didn't do it in the best way just because of how poorly the kids were written. But it still like left me on a high note of like thinking about how many other little pockets of children are just, or not even children necessarily, but just like little groups of families who don't have like the privilege of having a rebellion behind their backs that can supply them with weapons and information.
Yeah,
I just like that idea a lot, and they don't really explore it enough, I don't think.
Yeah, I like the idea too. It also kind of feels like, just in general, like, I feel like it's like a sci-fi trope that exists in other things, just like, you know, kids out in space.
It reminded me a lot of the movie Hook. Even though I haven't seen Hook, it just reminded me of that idea of like just like children living amongst each other, hunting,
Right.
pirates, Lord of the Flies style.
I've
More-
seen Hook,
He has seen Hook.
and I'm a film enthusiast.
I agree. I like the concept of like checking in with like kids, and let's not forget the Phantom Menace started all this off. That's got Anakin, little baby Jake Lloyd, Jar Jar Binks. So even there were a couple episodes in Clone Wars. Oh yeah, like the Youngling arc. I really liked that one. Just like the idea of just checking in with these kids' stories periodically. I like. What I thought was better and more well executed was the fact that the kids are paired with the kids of the Ghost Crew, which is Ezra, Sabine, and Chopper 2 is kind of like the kid of the Ghost Crew as well. It sort of draws a contrast to the characters, and like you said about the previous episode, it kind of shows how far they've come. And Ezra, I felt like had a few moments where he was just like a good leader figure for the kids, or like role model.
I did feel like his maturity in this episode, like the way he spoke.
Well, it's because these 14-year-olds are talking like 3-year-olds, but but yes, I did. That's what I liked the most.
But that's what I was getting at before, was that I noticed like several moments in the episode where Ezra was literally like delivering lines the same way that Freddie Prinze Jr. or the same way that Kanan would deliver lines.
Yeah.
Like when he was with Sabine walking down the hallway and he was like, "Be nice." Like I feel like that's something that Kanan would say to Hera, like the way he would like, or like the way that he would like pitch his voice from like down to like from low to high when he's like, "Mark, where are you?" Like, that's really cool. That's a very Kanan thing to do. There's just like little behavioral things that you could see like he was picking up from Kanan's leadership to himself. So in a way, Kanan was in this episode.
This might be just a planet to you, but it's our home.
Look, I didn't want to leave my home either. I was so afraid and I didn't know it.
We're not afraid of the Empire.
I know you're not. You're afraid of losing everything, like I did.
So you understand why we do what we do.
I understand that the Empire wants us to fight because that makes it easy for them to destroy us.
So you're saying we should do nothing?
No, I'm saying how we choose to fight is just as important as what we fight for.
Straight flames.
Straight flames, big fire.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, and I definitely think that's just one of the other things that contributes to like the things that work about the episode. Jordan, what would you say would be some of the other things that work about the episode, or did we cover all of it? What were some of the things that changed your mind this time around that made it a bit more of an easy sit through?
I think it was interesting that like it kept my attention, and the entire episode is basically based in like 3 different cockpits. Like
That's
we
true.
have like the Ghost, and then like the Iron Squadron ship, and then the Imperial ship. Yeah, I was like completely invested in all of it. And I also loved just like the innocence being crushed of the kids, the tier level of like the different Imperial ships that come.
Right.
Where it's like, yo, like this shit's nothing. Like we just blew up that ship, and then
Now that is a Star Destroyer.
Okay then. Let's get out of here.
he's like, oh shit, let's leave now.
Yeah, I like
You
that.
know?
That was another thing. Yeah, when the Star Destroyer even exits hyperspace and you see it from his perspective.
Yeah.
That was one of the moments where I was
which is the moment that I remember from my initial viewing of this.
Okay.
And I was waiting for it the entire time because I remember loving it. And I loved it even more this time.
Okay, cool. Those are all good points.
I just straight up think this is not a bad episode. Like, I could see like why people wouldn't enjoy it because of the writing, but I feel like that's part of the episode's charm.
So yeah, there was a lot of laugh out loud moments. Here's a clip reel of all of them.
So you guys are the entire Iron Squadron? The 3 of you?
Nice, you can count.
Let me debrief you on our plan to...
How debrief is this gonna be? What does evacuate mean? I need
Help! He was going to say help.
We're the Iron Squadron! Yeah!
We all laughed, and laughter leads to good times. So I cannot say
That's a Yoda quote, right?
But so I cannot in good faith say that I hated this episode. But there are so many stories that write kid characters like this that have done it better and have made it cheeky in a way that was like actually good. This was not that.
Yes, it was.
I said actually good, not like we're all like gut busting laughing.
What do you mean cheeky and good?
I mean like how
gate.
kids can sometimes
Like
be
the gate?
how how kids
I don't
can...
remember a thing about that movie.
I don't know what the gate is. How
We watched it at my house with the kids.
Oh, the gate, yeah. Yeah, so kids can sometimes be dumb and silly and laughable from an adult perspective, but I think there's a way to do that where it felt more easier to watch, but still more emotional.
On a personal level for me, I don't think there's just a lot of movies or media where there's a kid character who's identifiable and relatable in a cheeky way that I actually enjoy. Like a really classic movie example of that is The Sandlot. I don't like The Sandlot.
The Gate.
I don't remember anything about that movie.
The Gate.
Remember, there's a giant puppet demon at the end. It looks.
I remember we
and then
watched
there's
it.
also the whole basically just take anything that Stranger Things was inspired by 200 movies that came out in the 80s and Stand By Me, E.T.,
Night Feeder.
Yeah, I mean,
but I wouldn't say that any of the kids in E.T. were cheeky though.
Yeah, that's true. E.T. is a lot more grounded. So
and that's the only
E.T.
movie that
from
I've seen that you mentioned.
Yeah, I haven't seen Stand By Me.
And I don't like Stranger Things.
Any Disney Channel original movie. Come on, I would have settled for Disney Channel original movie Snarky Kid. That's what I would have settled for. In fact, that's honestly what I was kind of expecting, and I didn't get it.
Iron Giant.
Big Fat Liar too.
Big Fat Liar, Hannah Montana movie. Oh, Cody Banks, Agent Cody Banks.
They are endearing, but they aren't in the same level of character that they are. Where in Big Fat Liar, they're my parents are gonna kill me. I gotta do this thing for my dad because he doesn't believe me. But these kids are man, fuck these people.
Well, Martin Mann kind of has a dead dad, and he's ignoring his uncle. There's kind of a bit
I'm just
more
saying
going on.
his attitude and behavior don't match at all like Big Fat Liar does.
Gotcha. Well, I'm saying I wish it did. There were parts of the kid's story that I liked. I think one thing that I didn't like was just, I know, Jordan, you said it was something you liked, but or maybe not liked, I'm not sure. Maybe the way I phrase it will change your mind. But how unlikable Mark Matten was, and how sort of snotty and how much he talks down to the other characters. For me, it's just with the way all the other characters were written, it's he's the main character of out of all the characters that are in Iron Squadron. He made the experience more frustrating for me.
Yeah, Mike Meredith, he was Eminem. Marshall Mathers was all up in that sauce, and I wasn't feeling the sauce. And I don't know where you got that idea that I liked it. Because I didn't. And I don't think I said a single word while we were watching this episode, except, I want to make waffles with cheese. Because they were eating waffles with cheese.
You want some?
But, to each his own. Shout out to Mike Meredith,
You just changed his name a third time. Yeah, I'm just interpreting this character differently because I don't think he's they're not trying to make him out to be this character. I think they're just trying to show a caricature of this kid that's in space, or just this character that's in this galaxy in general, who's in the same place that Ezra was when he started, of being full of super feisty and
piss and vinegar.
Yeah. Well, see, I got that. I definitely felt and made the connection watching it both times, this is the exact same position Ezra was at the beginning.
Right.
And I liked that element of it. But for me, I think there was a little too much piss and vinegar. He was salty at his own crew. He was salty at Ezra and Sabine. He's oh, Sabine, you can count to 3.
Yeah, dude, that was such an eye-rolling.
So I don't hate Mark Matten. He's not anywhere near the bottom. Well,
oh, is he supposed to be Matt Martin from the Story Group?
All these characters are based off of the web people. So Johnner, I think, is the boom operator for the Star Wars show. And Matt Martin was originally in charge of StarWars.com, I think. And Andy Gutierrez.
Mike Matthew.
I think Goody was the least interesting from any kind of perspective. She didn't really do anything.
She literally did nothing.
She just
be pink.
She just did the line to prompt other characters to monologue about something.
I feel like they went out of their way to make Johnner dumb. He misunderstands
they did,
3 different words.
I loved it. I loved it every time.
Closing statement, anything. We don't need one. I felt like we had a lot of good stuff, and we said the reasons why we like them over and over again, but any closing statements about the episode? A message for people that are telling you that we are full of shit for even saying that it's okay.
You think that I'm full of shit?
Anyone who would say, like, you don't really think the episode is okay. You're just lying.
Oh, I'm not lying. I meant it genuinely. And I'm a person who's on a podcast. And I would not lie to my fans. I fuck with Iron Squadron.
Let's check in with the world between worlds for the latest breaking news.
I fuck with Iron Squadron.
Shocking to say the least.
Yeah, I think it's objectively one of the worst. But thinking about it, originally I was like, yeah, it's probably a hard last. But the second watch, I definitely don't feel that way anymore.
Anything that's hard last for me is just that's boring or insulting. And this did neither of those for me.
I mean, I felt like some of the jokes like insulted my intelligence, but the overall frame of it was fine.
I like Star Wars Rebels episodes that have a lot to offer in the world building department and the character development and emotional writing element. But then there's also shit like this that's so bad it's good. And if I think it's good because it's bad, I can do that because I'm a human being.
But
and
if
that's on you.
But if it's good and it's so bad, no. But if it's bad and it's good, does not just mean it's good because you said it's good.
From a personal standpoint, not from an objective standpoint. I think this episode is probably objectively one of the worst ones. But just because I enjoy bad writing, I think it's like up there as like probably in my top 10.
Wow!
Not like
You're
not
overcompensating.
More breaking news from the world between worlds.
I think this episode is probably objectively one of the worst ones, but I think it's like up there as like probably in my top 10.
Wow, truly the hottest take. Don't worry, there's still another episode to talk about.
Not the top 3, but definitely like top 10, maybe a runner-up.
Yeah, dude, man. All I could think about was cheese waffles. I'm still.
Will your cheese waffle monologue be debrief?
How debrief is this podcast going to be?
It's already not debrief. In the Wynkahthu Job, Ezra ropes up Hondo Ohnaka and Az Morgan for a supply run mission to the chagrin of just about everyone in the Ghost crew. But they say, hey, let's just do it. The prize this time is very valuable. As you would expect, things do not go according to plan. The plan consistently devolves. But what do we have? We have space hurricanes. We have space hook shooting. We have
AP5 back.
AP5 for a couple lines. And we have more Ugnaughts. And we have the new canon's version of the Imperial Dark Troopers from the Dark Forces games.
Dark Forces, right.
Purple friend, you get the bombs.
And you get the treasure. So what do you need us for? Why not use your own crew?
No, trust me, that is a long, boring story. No, my friends. You are the guys for this job.
If the Empire couldn't salvage the ship, what hope do we have?
Aha! Because we have something in our favor that the Empire does not. For we are desperate.
So I feel like, is it safe to say what we have here is very heavily oriented around 1, action, 2, comedy. I think this is like definitely the most overtly comedic episode that I've seen in Rebels in a while, geared towards having fun little comedy action beats. Honestly, since the Melu Run episode.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
I did love all of like the stress of like getting the bombs like to the ship.
I thought the action storytelling in this was honestly great.
I really felt like what they were feeling.
Yeah, like every time Hera checked in on comms, I was just like thinking to myself, like, when is she gonna check again? Like, when is she gonna check again?
Yo, when Zeb jumped on the bomb and then like was like swinging on it and they were shooting at him, I was like, yo,
it set it up slow. You got the harpoons, you got the storm, and you got the Dark Troopers, and it showed you how things were going to go wrong, and it did it bit by bit by bit. It was just great action storytelling, so that when everything does go wrong, you very quickly can conceptualize how difficult it's going to be for our characters to get away. And it was fun doing that.
The door joke was so good.
The door joke was that's probably the best joke in Rebels.
It's good like on its own the first time, but then the way it comes back around was just like perfect.
Yeah, because there's 2 door jokes.
Part 1, Part 2.
Part 1, Part 2. I had a Dark Trooper action figure when I was a kid, and that was my favorite. I just want to, let people know.
They're cool, and I like the way that they're designed here, because in Legends, they're kind of like really bulky, and in here like they look kind of like the Terminator, and that's cool as shit.
I kind of do like the droid version better.
Yeah, I think this is cool.
Yeah, I like this a lot too. Did you guys like Hondo as Morgan and Melch working together?
No.
I mean, I don't particularly like as Morgan, but I do find now they're pushing him into more of like the completely out of touch with reality, incompetent.
He's like picking up his earwax and putting it on the ghost's airlock door, and I'm just like, how is this guy like the guy everyone hates in the podcast? Like this guy is not a threat whatsoever. He scratches his butt a lot. I don't know if you guys were seeing that at all.
I mean, I just think they're just trying to telecast that he is not a hygienic man.
Yeah. And it translates very well.
It translates very well. More than as Morgan, I do honestly really love the Ugnaughts. I went from liking them to like, you know what? The Ugnaughts can chill.
I liked Melch a lot too. I like all of his interactions were just based on extreme close-ups of his face and how much he smiled
and him
or stared.
Dude, I totally got like biker vibe by him.
He's probably like the baddest Ugnaught on the planet of Ugnaught. Like he goes like so hard. But because he is like a little pig person, he kind of has to like adjust to not being the baddest guy anymore. But he still plays like he's like a big hard badass, but he's just not.
I think if Melch spoke basic, he would be the leader of that group.
I kind of agree.
How you guys feeling about Hondo?
How are you feeling about Hondo?
I'm like not feeling Hondo anymore. I think me and Jessica, like when he came on screen, we were both like, not him.
No, that's why I love that moment so much, because the dynamic of the Ghost Crew was the exact same as how everyone was in the room, and I felt like Ezra, the only one who still cares about Hondo. Being like, everyone keep an open mind about this episode. It's really good.
As far as Hondo goes, I don't ever mind his inclusion. Like, I mean, just in general, like with the show, like pretty much every episode has at least like one supporting guest character that shows up. And Hondo is clearly the one they always go to when they want to inject some humor into it. I thought Hondo was actually funny in many instances, whereas in the previous episode, I had found him to be not funny at all. So I feel like this episode took advantage of all the things that Hondo can bring to the table. While Jessica was not happy to see Hondo back, I feel like she raised her concerns about him in the premiere, and that he was kind of getting stale and messing over the Ghost Crew. And really, the one sort of thematic thing that happened in this episode was just sort of like Ezra realizing that. And so in a way, it's kind of an answer to that. It's just like, how much can we keep doing the same shtick with Hondo until we get tired of his character? And that's what Ezra does over the course of the episode. And also Hondo kind of gets, I felt, was a satisfying karmic one-uppance at the end, where instead of getting the treasure, he gets his worker that he tried to get rid of like 2 or 3 times at this point.
It's all Melch.
Ha! Guess he didn't trust Hondo not to leave him behind again.
Sorry it didn't work out, Hondo.
Work out? Oh, no, this is better. Yes, because friendship is the greatest treasure.
Do you really mean that?
Mostly. See, he's always laughing, always having a good time.
Yeah, that guy's got a big brain, dude.
Big brain, dude. And big fists. He knocked the wind right out of Hondo.
Yeah, for real.
So on that level, which is pretty much the only emotional arc or anything that happened in this story, I felt pretty satisfied. I think this is one of the last Hondo-centric episodes, if not the last. And if that's all this show has to say about this character, I think that's fine. He's definitely still fun. I feel like it's safe to leave him at this because the show is going on to bigger and better things. But I, to be honest, I really liked this episode. It's probably one of my favorites. Jordan, did any of what I just said about Hondo ring true to you? And it's kind of like meta, but like, did any of it matter to you, or did any of it get through to you while you were actually watching it?
No. I was thinking about how he has a Black Series figure that's going to be exclusive at Galaxy's Edge, and that's pretty much it, honestly. Good riddance, man. I don't want to see him again. He deserves friendship with the piggy. At least I felt like he was kind of genuine at the end when he said, yo, friendship is the key, not gold.
It was like reluctance, like he wish it wasn't, but it actually is. I just think Hondo's a one-trick pony that has a really cool trick. It's like I totally understood the criticisms the other weeks where he just kept repeating the same joke over and over again. That is like absolutely lazy writing. But I think here he actually like had a role to fit in the story. Because I went into this episode also being like, okay, great, it's going to be another Hondo mission heist episode, like all the other ones that we've gotten before. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really care either way if they tucked him away or if they brought him back. I liked him a lot in this episode specifically because it kind of like puts a magnifying glass on top of his character flaws for Ezra to see. And I thought that was like the right thing to do with his character at like this late in his story in Rebels. Because it's like you throw Hondo in Clone Wars and then you throw him in Rebels. Both shows are about different things. So like Hondo being an active role in the story of like being an arms dealer was a good character for him then. But now when you're here and Rebels is primarily all about character-driven stuff and emotional stuff, it just makes sense that he would be less of in terms of like what the format is, it makes sense that he'd be less of...
Like, basically, Hondo's not going to change as much as the main characters.
Yeah, because he kind of already explored that in the Clone Wars, like, as much as he probably should have. Like, if he was, like, still an arms dealer in Rebels, I probably would think he's boring just because he's written the same. Mm-hmm. But here he's, like, basically the same character, but he doesn't have anyone backing him up.
And the Ezra... The other two episodes were like good examples of like tracking Ezra's progression as a character. And this episode definitely continues that trend of, having Ezra have the critical eye over Hondo, as you were saying.
But I also really appreciate that at the end they didn't just have Ezra being like, we can't work together anymore. They actually like kept it on a happy note of like,
because that's Hondo not what Ezra's about.
Yeah, Hondo's going to do his thing. I know where he comes from. I was him at a certain point. I'm not going to judge him for being who he is.
Yeah, and honestly, Ezra's whole thing at the beginning, we didn't really bring it up. Ezra, like, you feel like Ezra is, like, purposefully, like, making all of the Ghost Crew uncomfortable. He's, like, going out of his way to, like, show the Ghost Crew, hey, Hondo needs a second chance because I like him. And
that's definitely what he should have said. Though it did kind of annoy me that he was saying, like, we always come out on top. Last time we came out on top. Last time they did not come out on top. Ezra was falling like...
I always assumed, just watching it, that what he's saying is just what Hera wants to hear. So I'm sure just the way it's acted, like I got the impression that this is all about Ezra's personal feelings towards Hondo, and that everyone should appreciate Hondo more the way he does. And I think the cool part of the episode is, like you said, it doesn't redeem Hondo, and also Ezra doesn't condemn Hondo. He starts off wanting to bring Hondo more into the fold, and at the end, Ezra is just sort of in the middle on Hondo. He's like, oh, I still have my connection to you, but like I can see your flaws more clearly now, which is cool.
So Jordan and Yates, what do you guys think Ezra's biggest lesson was? What do you think he took away the most from these 3 episodes?
These 3 episodes? I mean, I think the biggest one was the Hondo one, to be honest. I mean, he doesn't do too much in the first episode. He's sort of playing second fiddle to Sabine in like a way that was like genuinely refreshing. And then the middle one, he learned that, jetpacks aren't as fun as they look. And, kids at home, it's true. If you see a jetpack, don't put it on. Tell your parents.
Jordan.
He learned that not to trust Hondo, not to trust people. And that's important because people will lie to you, and you shouldn't trust them.
They'll say they want to go out on a date with you, but really they have a boyfriend already.
Exactly. That's my point exactly. I felt Ezra so hard in this episode.
I liked his Iron Squadron.
You can't ask yourself the question.
I didn't ask it. I'm just declaring it.
Oh.
I really liked in Iron Squadron his whole role of being like the leader, because that's like something really new for him. So I thought it was the coolest lesson, if not the most valuable one.
MVP.
Ezra learned all that stuff, but me, Yates, I learned that recording the podcast at 12, although tiring,
is worth it.
Leads to a lot of belly laughs. So there you go. Next week, we will be talking about Season 3, Episode 10, An Inside Man, Episode 11, Visions and Voices, 12, Ghosts of Geonosis, and 13, Warhead.
4 episodes?
Breaking news. Shortly after recording the episode, it was discovered that Ghosts of Geonosis was in fact a 2-parter. That brings our grand total up to 5 for next week. You're welcome, Jordan.
My name is Yates, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you with my friends.
My name is Jordan. It's also been a pleasure speaking to you with my friends.
My name is Keats, and Jordan, I like your new Bosk tattoo.
Oh, thank you so much. It's really cool.